Welcome, everybody, to Kona Shame Veterinary Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Roark. Guys, I got a little different episode for you today. I'm talking to my good friend, veterinary dentist, Dr. Donnell Hanson, and I'm talking to her about a passion project she has called the Four-Legged Tooth Fairy. Now, this is something that I just wanted to talk to her about. She has this really interesting business where a couple of times a year, she opens up a training center that she started, and she hosts veterinarians to work with them for 3 days on dental skills. And it's usually people who are terrified of dentistry. They've had a bad experience. We talk about that in the episode. Or they have just never felt confident, or they really like it and they want to go to the next level in their dental training. They all come together and she works with them all as a group with another dentist. And in 3 days, they go after it and they tackle those things. And it's just, the way she describes it is really just amazing. And I love her approach and how she focuses on meeting the people's needs who come there. And so I wanted to do an episode. It's not about dentistry. I don't talk to her anything about how to actually do dentistry. I wanted to talk to her about the experience of training veterinarians to do dentistry. Seems to me like a lot of people are terrified. How do you work with somebody who's terrified and get them to not be terrified in 3 days? How does that happen? What are the patterns that she sees? When people come in and they want to get better, what are the biggest weaknesses in their game, so to speak? And we break down all of that stuff. I talked to her sort of about lessons learned, and she's been doing this for years and years and years. And yeah, she's such a wealth of knowledge. I'm just interested in what her perspective is as a teacher who educates veterinarians who are sometimes late into their careers, where they're not broad-eyed vet students who are just used to learning. So anyway, this is a really neat conversation about something in vet medicine that's not clinical practice. It's around the education of veterinarians. So I hope you guys will enjoy it. This is something I'm just geek out about this stuff. Like I said, it's a little off the path from usual clinical practice. I hope you enjoy this episode. I really enjoyed making it. Let's get into it.
This is your show. We're glad you're here. We want to help you in your veterinary career. Welcome to the Cone of Shame with Dr. Andy Roark.
Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Donnell Hanson. How are you?
I'm well, sir. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for coming back on. For those who don't know you, you are a boarded veterinary dentist. You have been on the podcast many times. I love talking to you about teeth. You are also the founder of the Four-Legged Tooth Fairy. And the last time that we talked, you were getting ready to have a group of veterinarians. Is it all veterinarians, or is it veterinarians and technicians?
Right now, we mostly do veterinarians. We used to do both, but COVID ate the technician track, and I just haven't gotten my poop in a group to get the technician track back. So I have to, in the spare time, figure that out.
It's spare time to figure that out. Yeah. Okay. Why don't we just start off? Why don't you give me a high level of what is Four-Legged Tooth Fairy, and like, what do you do? How do you bring this to life?
Yeah, it's really just as a CE center for folks to come and sort of reconnect with their comfort and their confidence in dentistry. I don't know why, but for some reason, I take that back. I do know why. Dentistry inspires a ton of stress in family practitioners. An exorbitant amount of stress compared to what you guys actually do on a day-to-day. But dentistry inspires this fear, and it's carpentry, so it's fun. You don't need to have stress, and that's our goal.
Carpentry. Okay, so this is what I wanted to talk to you about, because the last time we were together, you talked about it. You said the same thing as the goal is comfort, the goal is confidence. And I thought that was really fascinating, because usually when I talk to people and they run a CE center, they say, well, we want to bring about mastery of these skills, or we want people to really be able to do X, Y, and Z. And that's not what you've ever said to me. You've always said, we want people to be comfortable and confident. And I go, it's just the fact that you lead with that, and that's how consistently how you communicate it. I think that that's fascinating. I think that you were right when you say this about dentistry and stress. I have this weird muscle memory of my shoulders being up around my ears as I do dentistry. You know what I mean? I've got the rongeur in my hand. I have to catch myself and then breathe and then put my shoulders back down. And it's they just creep up. And if you asked me, you said, Andy, are you stressed? I would look out from you, between my shoulders. I would look out and say, no, I'm fine, but my head would be squished down. I think there's two different things. I think that there's this stress that you're talking about that I have totally felt. And then there's fear of dentistry, which I've not had, but I see a lot in colleagues. And so to me, I've always kind of thought that the stress is something around, I think that there's a mechanical aspect of it, right? Like, I am here and I don't want to push too hard because I don't want to break a tooth, but I have to continue to apply pressure. And so there's kind of this just tension that I generate with my wrist, but then it goes up my arm and into my shoulder, and then my shoulder goes up to my ears. And then I'm just, by the end of the session, my whole back is sore from doing dentistry. So I think there's that stress component there. And then there's just a general fear. Let me say to you, okay, I see myself in your comments of someone who's like, I feel this level of stress. To me, I'm always like, no, it's just how I'm sitting or it's my stool or things like that. But that's probably not really true. When you start to work with people who have self-selected to come to Four-Legged Tooth Fairy, and so these are people who they want to work on this and get better, how do you start to approach this level of stress, Donnell? Like, what do you think is important to people who go, yeah, it just stresses me out? What do you think is required to start to help them build to a place where they're more relaxed and they feel like you do, where they're like, this is carpentry, it's fun? How do I start to go in that direction?
Well, I mean, really, what is stress? It usually is accompanied by a lack of knowledge or a lack of comfort or a lack of muscle memory familiarity, right? And maybe also comes from other people judging you and saying you're doing it wrong, or you didn't do this right, or not supporting what you are doing. We just try to meet everybody whenever we spend time with folks. We just try to meet everybody where they are. And some folks come here and they're new grads and they've never extracted a tooth before. And that's not about the center, but when people are doing dentistry, they might be freshly new. And some have been doing it for a very long time. But I learned on a Coke can, and my first extractions were with the pliers. And so not the pliers that you have in your surgical pack. Ones we drove to our local fleet farm and bought pliers. And that's how we pulled out teeth. So the whole gamut's out there of what people know.
You pulled out actual teeth? Or what is the Coke can? You said you learned in a Coke can? What is that? What is that?
If you take a scaler and you use a can of Coke, you can take the paint off the Coke can. That's how we learn to scale teeth.
Okay. I didn't know that. No. And then when you were pliers, I was like, we're just hitting, you can get all this at Home Depot. Like the Coke can
and Dremel tools and giggly wire. And those are things that we all learned about, when we first, those in sort of our generation, that's how we learned. Now, of course, I was fortunate to go to a place that had a dentist and became a mentor, and I adore him and learned so much. But my first experience in dentistry were truly pliers and what's that called? The Donner hardware store guy.
Don't ask
me. And I can't think of screwdriver.
Oh, screwdriver. Okay. I thought you were asking about dental appliances. Like, don't ask me.
No. Putting the right tools in the right spaces and the right information in your hands to just try to help guide you.
Do you think that a lot of people are sort of held back in this move towards being less stressed and more comfortable by caseload? Do you think that there's a lot of people who don't get to do the level of dentistry that they would kind of need in order to be comfortable?
Either you're asked to do 7 dental procedures in a day or 14, right? Yeah. Or you're the new grad and they're like, well, we'll give you 1 a month. And I'll understand. I know why from a business standpoint. I understand all of that. Yeah. But it's really hard to learn like your muscle memory and confidence and see that thing over and over again to really thrive.
Yeah. So 1 a month is, it's funny when you say that, I go, yeah, I've heard that. But that's absolutely brutal for learning. It's all of the stress at a frequency that you never get better. So you just continually, at once a month, you get reminded how stressful this is. Like that's what it feels like.
And so you never get the chance to have success because it's like, I just have been sitting here in my adrenaline for 3 hours, not in comfort.
Do you ever get doctors that come to your sort of CE experiences who are flat out afraid of dentistry?
Oh, I mean, it's expensive to come to any CE, right? Yeah. And ours is not disincluded. That's not the right word, but you get what I'm trying to say. And so when they click that button for the cost of our center or cost of any CE, they're either doing it out of, oh my gosh, I'm scared to death, so I got to go do this. I'll make myself do it, put my big girl pants on or my big boy pants on, as you've said. Or sometimes their practice is sending them because there might be some level of room for improvement there that they said, okay, you're going to the center. Some folks, it's part of their contracts. What they do, they come join us. Okay. And then some folks are like, hey, I'm doing good. I think I'm doing good. I want to go ninja level. I really want that
be
extra
next level.
Oof.
Yes.
Yeah. They're all in the same group. And it's fun because they learn from each other and we guide them together. And that's any CE you're going to go to. That's not about our center. That's any dentistry CE you're going to go to. That's the hope and intent.
When you think about doctors that are really uncomfortable with dentistry, do you see a pattern there? Are there certain experiences they had or certain beliefs that they hold that you sort of see again and again that seem to really hold people back?
Yeah, PTSD.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that makes sense to me, right? Is like this bad thing happened and I don't want to go through it again. Is it often that of people, they had a bad experience and it really turned them off?
Yeah. And, for some reason, the ones in dentistry really sink in, root tips and mandibular canals, noses.
It's the crack. It's the crack. Like I hear it in my sleep. There's a certain crunch or crack and you feel it through your body and like you never forget it when you're like, oh no.
And I think we're expected to know this stuff, but really most of us, nearly all of us, even now, despite a lot of my friends who are in academics and teaching scenarios, many of us never got enough. That the amount of training we get versus what we're expected to do is discrepant. We got to meet that space. People feel like, oh, I've been done this before.
What's the key to breakthroughs? So like you have people and they come and they've got PTSD or whatever. Do you see people in the sort of the limited amount of time when you're with them? I'm sure you've seen people who have really just felt like they've come in sweaty palmed and they have left with this idea, I can't wait to do more of this. What flips that switch?
I'm going to be corny when I say this, but obviously practice, but someone believing in you. There's never been someone who's left here that we thought that's not going to go well. We just sit. It's like small batch learning, like small group learning, right? So we can see, where are you at? And let's help you with this thing. Because it truly is just arts and crafts.
I love that you keep saying it. It's such a friendly, low stress thing. It's like, no, we're just doing arts and crafts.
One of our attendees, we always have dentists say this a lot. I'm sure you've heard us say this. It's not just a dental. We get annoyed by this notion of just a dental. You might be 17 years old with a heart murmur and liver stuff, but it's just a dental. It bothers us because that's not a real word. Right? Yeah. And so we're always harping. It's not just a dental. It's dental care, oral surgery, all the things that go along with it. But in the end, it really is just a tooth. And I can win over a tooth. I even say to them, I had a veterinarian text me yesterday. He's like, what do you guys do when you're so frustrated? And I threaten it. I'm going to get you little sucker. I'm going to win. I'm going to win this. You just have to be patient.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just a tooth. It's not a spleen. That's scary. Taking out spleens, that's scary. This is just a tooth.
How long have you been running these sessions?
The center opened in 2019, but part of back in the day of doing a residency back in 2008, companies would have us out to hospitals to help them learn. Like the reps that you have, they put in so much energy and effort into supporting the veterinary community. They would have us out to their hospitals to help them learn. So we've been teaching for a long time.
Okay. What do you know now that you wish you knew when you started? So just as far as, if you've worked with a lot of people on these skills, what did you not know or what did you not realize at the beginning that you now know?
This is more than dentistry. This is a life lesson.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I'm just curious what you've picked up.
A little bit of vulnerability that I don't have to be perfect. Same thing here with extractions, with care. You don't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect is the enemy of good. We can do good, and it's important.
That means a lot. I love that. All right, cool. Donnell, where can people learn more about Four-Legged Tooth Fairy if they're like, I think I'd like to try that?
Well, just check it out on the website, fourleggedtoothfairy.com. We're around.
I'll link it up in the show notes. Donnell, thanks for being here. Thanks for talking with me. Guys, thanks for tuning in and listening, everybody. And that's what I got. Guys, thanks for checking it out. Thanks to Dr. Donnell Hanson for being here. Check out her training center, the Four-Legged Tooth Fairy. I'll put links in the show notes. Gang, it's always interesting to get off and explore other things. I love the idea that veterinary medicine is a house with 1 million rooms. And I think Donnell starting up a training center and running these programs is a perfect example of things that none of us ever thought we could do as doctors, but somebody's out there doing it. And so anyway, I hope you found this as inspiring as I did. Take care, everybody. I'll talk to you later.